Okay, thank you for wrapping up conversations and wonderful. So we're ready to resume our PI meeting. Next on the agenda, we have Amanda Greenwell. Amanda is the head of our Office of Legislative and Public Affairs. So anything that deals with our media, that deals with legislation, Amanda is the perfect person to talk with about. So she'll provide some general updates, and then we certainly will have enough time after her updates for engagement. So both online as well as in the room, if you have questions about anything Amanda talks about or anything more broadly, I'm sure she'll be happy to talk with you in the next 30 minutes. So I'll turn it over to Amanda. Thank you for being here, Amanda.
Thank you for having me, Sandra. Great to see everyone. Thanks for inviting me back. So just wanted to give kind of a high-level overview of some of the things the office has been up to, some things I think you guys would be interested in. Again, happy to take some questions. Okay. The slides are not advancing. Okay. So just wanted to give a high-level snapshot of the leadership team within OLPA. We've had some changes this last year. I'm actually in the process of hiring a deputy, which will be the first time since I've joined the agency over 7 years ago. That's been for different reasons, but real opportunity here with some changes we've had to, like I said, hire the deputy, look at a little bit of a restructure, reorganization within the office to make sure that we're serving both the agency and the needs of the mission, both for today and into the future. So you see the 3 branch chiefs here. Corey Bassett had joined to be the branch chief for creative services and has been acting over the public and media affairs branch as well since last fall when our previous branch chief left for a promotion at Department of Justice. Rob Mueller covers the government affairs branch, and Michelle Massey is our business operations branch lead, keeps everything going with HR, contracts, and more. They're an amazing team. Obviously, I don't have everybody up here, but I've been really proud of all the work that has been accomplished, especially over the last year, and much more to come. So I think most of you know, we do an annual strategic plan within OLPA, and we've done ours for 2023 now. We're well on our way. We've got 3 key stakeholders that we continue to focus on. Policymakers, of course, being one of them. We want to make sure that policymakers understand the impact of NSF investment in their district, their state, their locality, and make sure that that understanding is reflected in legislative process, favorably in the legislative process, whether that be through increased appropriations or language that we get or language that we don't get, and making sure that we continue to build those relationships. The general public is another one of our key stakeholders. We want to make sure, one, that they know that we're part of the federal government and that they recognize that we are using the taxpayer dollars in a very important way that actually benefits them on a daily basis. And we're also trying to make sure that we're reaching out and getting more awareness of some of the programs that we have had established for a while, new programs that are coming up, so that we can look for ways to leverage new partners, such as in industry, not only academia, but also the private sector and foundations as well. And then the final stakeholder that we continue to focus on is the internal staff and the research communities. There's a lot of overlap here, but it's really important that we know that our staff here are very passionate, and we want them to continue to be NSF brand ambassadors and make sure that my office can help them in terms of the consistent messaging across the agency and with branding, and make sure that we have that information out there. We also need to get information from our staff and from the community in terms of events that are coming up, announcements that are going to be made, photos, visuals, things that we can use to make sure that we can do a better job of telling the story. And again, we need that all from you as well, and making sure that the community continues to tell the story and make the clear link of NSF to the amazing things that you do, especially when you're talking to policymakers and media and others. Another thing that we're doing in addition to the annual strategic plan is we have started to plan for a 3-year strategic plan. And this is for a couple of reasons. Of course, it's going to be anchored in the 3 pillars that you hear the director talk about, the agency talk about in terms of our priority areas, strengthening the established NSF, which of course includes infrastructure, the missing millions, and making sure that we're reaching out to not only all of those folks from different backgrounds, but all parts of the country, and making sure that they see they have an opportunity in STEM. And then innovation and ensuring the success of TIP. We are looking at a 3-year strategic plan for a couple of reasons. So our annual plan will fit into these, but making sure that we are going to be able to celebrate our 75th anniversary that's coming up in 2025. And it also coincides with, it's towards the end of the director's term. So really being able to look at not only everything that the agency has accomplished in the last 75 years, but really looking towards the future in terms of what more we can do. And the thing I meant to mention too is in these plans, the team has gotten really good at metrics. So we've been able to really figure out how to kind of compare apples to apples across the board and look at in our plans what things are working and resonating, where do we want to spend more time and more resources, and where we may need to pivot and focus somewhere else. So that's going to be key. So just wanted to highlight with this, obviously, one of the key stakeholders that we talk about, there's been some changes the last year in terms of leadership on our key committees. I'm showing 4 of them here. We actually have 5 oversight committees. Senate Help has jurisdiction over NSF as well, but we normally engage with them a little bit more when we have the nominees that they put through. These are the 4 that we engage with on the most regular basis. The members that are highlighted, you can see, are from EBSCOR jurisdictions, so obviously very important across the board. Senate Appropriations, we now have Senator Murray and Senator Collins as the chair and ranking for the full committee. We continue to have Shaheen and Moran as the chair and ranking for the subcommittee. On Commerce Committee, Chair Cantwell has stayed, and we now have Senator Cruz as the ranking member, and Senator Sinema and Schmidt are the chair and ranking on our subcommittee on the Senate Commerce. House Appropriations Committee, we have Granger and DeLauro as chair and ranking member for the full committee. Hal Rogers and Cartwright are the chair and ranking for the subcommittee for CJS. And for House Science, I think everyone knows that we have Representative Lucas is now chair, with Lofgren being ranking, and we have Collins and Stevens as our chair and ranking on the specific subcommittee. So again, great support, but it's showing the importance of EBSCOR as well. And again, this is just wanted to highlight Senate CJS subcommittee in particular. You see all of the highlighted members there, huge representation from the EBSCOR jurisdictions, and a lot, huge importance for these members. And so we have a lot of interactions here. I'll talk a little bit more about the hearings and some of those engagements soon. So the director's done an amazing job making time for not only meetings, but visits with members of Congress. And he's been going across the country in addition to his international travel to try and visit some of these institutions and places that maybe haven't been visited as often by previous directors, and making sure that when we do those visits that we're making sure a member can be available and part of those visits, so we can make that clear connection again of the funding that they support that then NSF puts out the door and makes some of these amazing things happen that you all make happen in their backyards. So last fall, we were at Clemson with Senator Graham, you'll see here on the left. The second picture, we were invited by Senator Moran back out to Kansas for a second time, this time visiting Wichita State University, Wichita State Tech, and Pittsburgh State. Heavy emphasis on workforce for a lot of these visits. And then the third one, we were in Virginia. We went to VCU with Senator Kane and Congressman Whitman. And then this last one you see here, he was recently in Rhode Island at the request of Senator Reed. And actually last Friday, we just came back from New Hampshire. Senator Shaheen had invited us out there. So really amazing visits, opportunity for us to hear from folks, really learn about the programs that we put in place, but also things that we can do better. And again, like I said, strengthening the relationships with the members, their staff, and having them see the importance of NSF firsthand. Just a few other things. The office is not just doing congressional. We have been really trying to get out there, like I said, with some of these other stakeholders, especially the general public. We were at South by Southwest again this past March, and we had a huge presence, a big booth that was very popular, a lot of foot traffic there, and actually had 2 panels that were accepted. So we were able to get out some specific science that we were doing. We have been launching new social media accounts. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but the director has his own Twitter account now, and we are up on LinkedIn, and that's been gaining some quite a few followers. It's been pretty popular. We also recently launched a new website. So we are officially off of beta and on nsf.gov. It looks amazing. The team has done a really great job with Wanzi's team in DIS. To make sure that we were able to launch that and make sure it's more user-friendly, looks great. We're going to be able to update that easier. I would encourage folks, if you haven't been able to go there yet, there's a survey on the homepage, and it's asking for input in terms of things that you like, things that don't work. That's really going to help us get better as we try to finalize the rest of those pages. We've been doing a lot on branding, so that's helped us with the consistency and look so that we can, again, make those connections with folks when we're putting things out. We hope to have a branding policy done in the coming months, and so we'll be excited to launch that and talk about it. We do have a media policy that was finalized last year that's really been helping us give broader awareness across the agency for reach, and also provide better support for folks that are going out and talking about the important mission. You see here in this photo, we've got the eclipse coming up in October. We're going to be doing a lot on that in partnership with NOAA and NASA, so that's really exciting. And we've had a lot of announcements recently, a lot of rollouts that we've been doing, including the EPSCoR awards that were just announced. So that's been really fun to get some of the awards out there. Okay, so a couple other things that are, I know, front and center. We had, since I saw you last, CHIPS and Science Act was passed, and we are now have been working on the implementation of that. We've had a historic budget increase on our FY23 that was finalized, and the largest budget proposal ever in FY24 at $11.3 billion. We know that this year, obviously, there's going to be a lot of, I would say challenges with some of the politics in terms of what comes out for the final number, but we do know we have a lot of support up there, and I think one of the big things that we've been trying to push for a message is that if there is going to be a CR, really needing to make sure that NSF is at the $9.5 billion level as the base, and not going back to the 8.8 and 22, so that we can continue a lot of these important things that we're doing. But we'll see what comes out in the next couple of weeks with the top lines. Okay, a little bit more on the CHIPS and Science Act. So I think everyone knows this was signed by the president in August. The act, this is really important, authorizes funding for NSF, and it is a historic investment, and again, shows its support with some new authorities that we got in there. We did get $200 million over 5 years from the CHIPS portion of the act, and that's specific to semiconductor workforce training. So we're working that closely, obviously, with Congress, OMB, Department of Commerce, to make sure we're carrying that out. But again, the rest of the authorizations that you see, those are authorizations, and they have to be appropriated on an annual basis to actually see that happen. Again, 23 was historic, did not meet the levels of what was laid out in the legislation, nor does the FY24 request, but still really great numbers that we will be able to do a lot with if it comes to fruition. I think you all know this, but there were provisions that were set out in CHIPS and Science to make sure that so it's setting a percentage-based target for NSF total funding to reach, right? And that started in FY23. Targets for FY24 are going to be at 16%. And the way that this is defined is with base resources is derived from RNRA and EDU. So it does exclude, the facilities, MREFC, and some other of the other areas, so that we can make sure that we're calculating that on a consistent basis. So NSF, I'm sure you've heard this multiple times, but we are absolutely committed to meeting those targets, and not only meeting the targets, but making sure that we are working towards building capacity in the EPSCoR jurisdictions as well as emerging research institutions. This is critical for not only the nation, but of course, especially with what we're talking about in terms of the priority for missing millions and reaching everyone. We do have a Chips and Science website, so I would encourage folks to go there. If you haven't checked that out, we're trying to make sure that we're putting up, both new opportunities and things that are coming out of the implementation of that act. So more to come. I think if you guys haven't heard from budget yet, I think you're going to be hearing from them, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on 24, but as I said, historic proposal at $11.3 billion. The director was he had a very busy month of April, and was testified in front of both House Science, House CJS Subcommittee on Appropriations, and the Senate CJS Subcommittee on Appropriations, and they all went really well. Obviously, lots of questions, lots of interest on EPSCoR, and so again, highlights the importance and the support that you all are getting there. I did want to highlight there's a few EPSCoR provisions in the budget request, and so the funding increase that is proposed for 24 is supposed to support new activities responding to 3 reports that were issued in 22, Envisioning the Future of NSF EPSCoR report, a report issued by GAO, and an exploratory analysis and conceptual framework for examining research competitiveness. So again, we'll see what happens in 24. So I just wanted to be able to share the updated, most recent logo that the EPSCoR team worked on with my team. I think it looks great. It really helps highlight the 5 nodes and the 5 goals that you all have put up there. So this is exciting, and it helps us, like I said, make sure that we can kind of carry through the NSF look and feel throughout all the things that we put out and the great work that you all are doing. And I just wanted to end it on, there's multiple ways that you can engage with OLPA. I would ask that you continue to share your success stories that come out of everything that you're doing. Again, pictures, videos, any newsworthy announcements, especially if you can share those ahead of time, we can really help amplify what you're putting out there. And again, please continue to make that connection of the importance of NSF investment in the work that you're doing, especially when you're talking to, like I said, policymakers, media, and others. That's not always clear for folks. And we do use the examples, people that you share that are really exciting that we want to highlight. We use them not only on the social platforms and in pitches with media, but obviously in congressional meetings, preparations for hearings, you name it. Here's all of the platforms that we're on. Again, I had mentioned that we launched a new Twitter account for the director. You also see the LinkedIn up here that's been gaining a lot of traction. So please tag us if you're putting things out. Use our hashtags. Make those clear connections. We can't have the reach that we want to have without all of you. So thank you for the work, and I'm happy to take questions.
So there are mics on the floor again. If anyone has a question, please come towards the mic. And then online, please utilize the chat if you have a question virtually.
Hi, thanks for sharing all that. You mentioned that you've come up with some great metrics to measure what you do. What are those metrics?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are looking in a lot of different areas. So for example, we just recently announced the AI Institutes was rolled out with the White House. And so what we'll look at is basically coverage, media coverage, what's the actual reach, what's the potential reach, right? Same thing with social. And what we try to look at is things that have come about that the office has pitched, maybe proactively try to put out, and things that have happened because of, let's just say, like our name was in it, right? So if a facility puts something out and it says U.S. National Science Foundation's X, right? How much pickup did that get? And so we'll look at kind of those two different things and see what we need to tweak, whether it's on our pitches or other asks that we're going to put there. But it's all kinds of different metrics. And so we're trying to put those out and get better reports. We put in things like the National Science Board memo that we'll do every meeting. There's an OLPA memo that goes into that, and you'll be able to see that publicly. We've been doing some snapshots of some of the metrics that we've been tracking. So that's another way to look at, again, what's the reach that our products and things that we're putting out are having. That's the goal.
Yeah, this is it. How do we get access to the new NSF EPSCoR logo? Is it do we have to write to somebody for permission to use that, or?
We have that up.
So I'm going to actually talk about that on Tuesday and tell you how to get it from within the jurisdictions.
Did I scoop Sandra? Sorry, Sandra. It looks great.
Amanda, you mentioned the Chips and Science website. Do you have that link, or how do people find it easily?
Yes, no, I'm happy to send that to you. It's actually, you should be able to get to it pretty easily from the homepage, but there is a specific link to that too, like I said, where we're putting up announcements, articles, things like that. So I'll send that to you to send around.
Perfect. And a question we often get on your previous slide, you had several email addresses around, share information about exciting things that are going on in the jurisdictions. And there's a lot going on. And so any guidance on, what types of things you all are interested in, or is it just anything that that the jurisdiction deems to be exciting and newsworthy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you guys already have the jurisdictions covered that are important to us. So sometimes we look at like where members are, but honestly, like I said, we're trying so many different ways of doing outreach. So I guess I would say I would rather folks err on the side of like sharing versus not. We don't always know. One of the things that my office is trying to get better about is creating a forum even internally for folks to send things in, because even if we can't use something that week, right, especially if it's a picture, especially if it's a story, something like that, we don't know when, we're tracking media trends, all of those pieces of when we can have something, some example of something that we can pull up and then use later. So I would rather folks send in more than try to guess what it is that we're looking for. But I'm happy to send additional information to some of the really, I think, hard-hitting or surprising, I guess I would say, news stories or science stories that have really had gained more traction and had more of an impact. So you can kind of see an example of some of those that have worked well.
Awesome. Thank you. Regina Seaver's walking around with a mic. If anyone has questions, raise your hand. And I'll note that someone dropped in the chat the link, Amanda, so you don't have to send it.
Thank you.
For the CHIPS guidance, new.nsf.gov/CHIPS.
Perfect.
So I'll read a comment from the chat. I'm not sure if it's a comment or question from Brittany, who I believe is from Arkansas. It is very hard for us to see when you use our stories. Would it be possible to tag the respective jurisdictions handle when NSF does use our stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess what I would ask is when you're sending in information, feel free to, add that tag or, other links you want in there. That's an easy way for my team to be able to put that in for something that they use. But yes, we'd like to be able to do that where we can.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you very much, Amanda, for joining us, and we'll transition.